Coming up on this edition of BCU In-Depth, documentaries from students in BCU's Robertson School of Media and Culture.
Many movies in Hollywood bomb and don't make a profit, but is Hollywood itself next?
And we'll explore the evolution of Richmond over the past few decades into a top global beer city.
BCU In-Depth begins right now. Good evening and welcome to BCU In-Depth. I'm Nyana Whitley.
And I'm Africoma Darko. Thanks for joining us as we feature documentaries from undergraduate students in BCU's Robertson School of Media and Culture.
Hollywood is currently facing a difficult challenge to its multi-billion-dollar movie industry. The challenge? People are choosing to watch their movies at home rather than at the theater.
Could Hollywood be in its final act? Let's take a look at The Hollywood, the next box office bomb, where we explore the decline of box office ticket sales.
Since the beginning of civilization, people have always needed some form of entertainment in their lives. The Romans had the Colosseum, the Greeks had the Olympics, and at the start of the 20th century, America went to the movies. But even though movies have become a staple of American entertainment, fewer and fewer people are going to the theater. And it's a well-known problem inside Hollywood, but the public has almost no awareness of this. It's true, the movie audience is declining, but why? Essentially, the start of cinema in America was called the silent era. People went to the theaters in amazement at what they were witnessing. Something as simple as a 20-second clip of a train coming towards the screen caused the crowd to panic and flee the theater because they thought the train would come straight out of the picture. Over the next few decades, film would continue to evolve, venturing into the first sound films called the talkie era of the 30s.
Sir, you are no gentleman.
And you, miss, are no lady.
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
To what is considered the golden age of Hollywood in the 40s and 50s,
is looking at you, kid.
I'm laughing at clouds so dark up above.
all the way to the summer blockbusters and expensive budgets of the 70s and 80s. But even though films became bigger and better, the audience was getting smaller and smaller. And according to VCU film professor Michael Jones, surprisingly, Hollywood has been facing stiff competition for decades.
Well, theaters have always been under pressures. I mean, going back to the advent of television, that's when box office started declining. In 1946, Hollywood had its biggest box office year ever. That is, number of heads coming to the movies. At that point, people were going to the movies 3 times a month. That's a lot of heads coming in. And then because of television, we went through a steady decline. And so exhibitors have always had some pressures.
And the pressures continued to mount as over 1.2 billion tickets were sold in 2017, which may seem like a lot. It's actually a 6% drop from 2016. And according to Variety.com, the summer movie season of 2017 plummeted with an estimated 14.6% drop from the previous year, becoming the worst performing movie summer since 2006. This dramatic drop in sales has caused the theater chains to compensate for lost profits in ways that many people are not happy with.
Often, let's say, to make up for declining attendance, that's why the concession prices go up, to balance that out. I mean, that's why you pay $8 for a big thing of popcorn.
Wait, did he just say $8 for a bucket of popcorn?
Which costs them about 50 cents. The same way with the cup and the drink you get, the cup costs more than the contents.
To give a better example of how much it costs to go to the movies in 2018, a little bit of math needs to be involved. The average price for an adult movie ticket in Richmond, Virginia is $11.18, with kid prices averaging at $8.18. Now, let's say that an average family of 4 wants to go to the movies. Well, adding the averages that the family would have to pay would equal around $38.72 at the gate. But wait, the family wants concessions. Well, they have to get popcorn, and that's $8.25 more. and everyone wants a medium drink, which comes to around $6 per drink. And then the kids want candy, which is an added $4 per candy. After adding up the total, a family of 4 would be paying around $78.97 for a single trip to the movies. A price that some people aren't willing to pay, especially when moviegoers now have more options than ever before to get their entertainment. As a society, we are now in the digital age of cinema. People don't have to sit in a theater anymore, as everyone has their own ways of entertainment right in their own home.
Well, I think probably the primary reason is that there's so much more that you can watch at home with all the streaming services now. There's a million movies, there's a million TV shows. You know, you turn on Netflix every day, there's another new something on there. So a lot of people, especially if you're young and don't have a lot of money, $9, $14 a month, blam, you're done. If you go to one movie, that's easily $9, and that's without any concessions.
Netflix provides a giant library of films for a cheap $8.99 a month. Netflix is to 2018 as TV was to 1954. Streaming services are the new threat to the theater business, so it's no wonder why Hollywood is currently at war with Netflix and Hulu. Recent attacks on the streaming giants have come from acclaimed directors, like Steven Spielberg, saying that, quote, Netflix movies don't deserve Oscars, they deserve Emmys. And earlier in 2018, the Cannes Film Festival barred Netflix movies from being considered for the top prize. But the new mediums of Hulu and Netflix provide positives for up-and-coming film directors, like Jeremy Benbow.
We've seen kind of these gatekeepers of film kind of discredit Netflix and Hulu streaming services as like these kind of replacing theaters. They're offering the money to these creatives to make this content, like why not just let them do their thing?
And Netflix isn't going away anytime soon, because now even some of the most talented people in Hollywood, like American Horror Story writer Ryan Murphy, are being signed to multi-million-dollar deals.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
But even with the stiff competition coming from streaming services, the growing theater prices, and the declining audience numbers, it's not all gloom and doom for Hollywood.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
First of all, let's be clear. The movie business is sort of like Broadway. It's always been dying. I think that's sort of, people are always, I love it when people start out and they say, well, the movie business is on its way out. How do you feel about that? And I'm like, it's always been on its way out. I mean, they predicted back in the 1950s and 60s that television was going to kill it, dead. They were like, another 10 years, nobody's going to be watching movies. They were wrong. People are saying now, well, home entertainment, Netflix, streaming, and so forth, all this is going to destroy movie theaters. I think they're wrong now.
But Shaw Vess and TV Jerry think that one similar issue is plaguing Hollywood. The problem is that just maybe audiences don't want to see bad or even mediocre films.
It's all, bottom line, it's about content. If it's an interesting movie and people want to see what it's about and it tells the story well, people will pay the money to go see it. There are movies like that in every category.
And when we show crap movies, we get crap business. So it does matter what you show. And it also matters what you're paying, and timing matters. All of these things are factors. None of them by themselves are enough for you to keep a hold on the industry.
And with the summer of 2017 having bomb after bomb and honestly not the best reception in terms of quality, the solution might be as simple as making better movies and just caring about the overall quality of the products being filmed.
Key is you've got to focus on providing a better product than everybody else does. You can't ignore price. Obviously, you've got to be competitive, but there's a big difference between being value and being cheap. And the trouble is, quite honestly, when we're consumers, sometimes we're drawn too easily to cheap. But when we ultimately return on a regular basis, we return because of quality, not because of cheapness.
Whether cheap or expensive, on Netflix or shown at the Bird, movies will always be around. But unless Hollywood starts looking at themselves and find a solution, they won't be top dog anymore.
Certainly, one thing hasn't changed. Movies were the most dynamic art form of the 20th century. And that hasn't changed. I mean, we're so addicted to the moving image that we carry them around now in the palm of our hand.
Movies will continue to be a staple of American culture, as shown by the recent successes of Black Panther, Wonder Woman, and A Quiet Place. But for Hollywood itself, it's on them and the theaters to get back to being what made going to the theater such an experience, and to remember to put the customer experience first, because customers now have the power of choice, and they can choose not to go to the theaters.
I'm Bill Oglesby, an associate professor in VCU's Robertson School of Media and Culture and the instructor for the documentary class. Joining me tonight are Chris O'Keefe and Eleanor Ritzman and David Rosales, who produced the Hollywood documentary. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Very much. Chris, let me start off asking you what exactly inspired you to do this particular subject?
Well, originally we wanted to do pop culture of the 80s, but we realized that was too broad of a topic, so we came together as a collective group and said, what does everyone like to do? Everybody loves movies. Almost everybody loves going to the movies. And then we realized, wow, less and less people are going to the theater, and they would rather watch it, from Netflix and streaming services from the comfort of their own home. So let's make that our subject.
Yeah.
And it just continued from there.
Right. You have some great home theaters now at a pretty reasonable price. So yeah, I can understand that. Okay, Eleanor, what kinds of difficulties did you face? I think a lot of people like to hear what went wrong.
Yeah. So especially for our documentary, we wanted to be able to tell the story visually, and that was a bit challenging considering that we couldn't really find much B-roll for that, but we were managed to find some things like graphics and movie clips, so it worked out pretty well. In addition to that, interviews were a little challenging too. Some people canceled on us, people had to change dates. So you have this vision going in of what you want your documentary to look like, and sometimes it can come out looking totally different.
Mm-hmm. And by B-roll, we mean cover footage, right?
Correct.
For those people out there who don't know. Okay. David, I was going to ask you, what kinds of things do you think you would have done differently? I'm sure one of the things you wouldn't have done is cancel your trip to California, because I think you get the award for going the furthest to shoot something.
I mean, I think I would have put something more personal into the story, because when you see the documentary, you're going to see a lot of facts just thrown at you. So I would have if we would have done something different, maybe we would have added like more time to in the documentary, so I can add something more personal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. What are your personal opinions of the theater business? And this can go to anybody. What action do you believe the business needs to take to be successful?
I think they just need to put out better movies. You look at a movie like Avengers, it just beat The Force Awakens, opening domestic gross. And it's probably going to make $2 billion, and everybody loves it. Just make better films.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I guess sometimes there's a certain formula, isn't there, for what really works? Isn't that true?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, and let me see. What else did I want to ask? Oh, and would you count yourself as movie fans?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
okay.
I go at least once a week.
I figured. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. I've been speaking with Robertson School students and documentary producers Eleanor Ritzman, Chris O'Keefe, and David Rosales. Nice job, guys.
Thank you
again.
Thanks, Dr. Oglesby. Since the passing of Senate Bill 604 in 2012, allowing beer to be sold on-site at breweries in Virginia, there are now over 30 breweries in the Metro Richmond area. This bill has created more than 28,000 jobs throughout the Commonwealth.
This explosion in breweries resulted in VinePair magazine ranking Richmond the #1 beer destination in the world. With such economic achievements at hand, it is worth diving into the center of the beer evolution here in the state capital. Here's Suds and the City.
Richmond, the River City, RVA, the capital of Virginia and one of America's oldest major cities. Known for Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech, Edgar Allan Poe, Hollywood Cemetery, and beer? From a handful of breweries to 32 in only 10 years, the greater Richmond area's booming beer scene is drawing international attention. Richmond landed the #1 spot on VinePair's list of the world's top 10 beer destinations for 2018. The city may be small in size, but its reputation for beer sure isn't. But first, let's rewind a bit, or more than a bit. The first canned beer ever sold in the United States went on sale in Richmond in 1935. So, how did we get to where we are today?
In the 60s, there were a lot of young people going overseas, backpacking, exploring Europe, and they were introduced to a lot of English ales and German lagers, and they came back and they couldn't find those flavorful beers, so they started homebrewing. And that really was the spark that led to the craft brewing boom in general. And in the early 90s here in Richmond, those home brewers started opening up breweries, and Legend in 1993 and 1994 was the first one to really get going on a commercial basis, and now is the oldest existing surviving craft brewery in the state.
After looking for a job all day, I'd heard about this brewery that had just opened and heard good things about it, and thought I'd swing by and check it out. And ended up sitting up in the little pub up there having a porter with Tom Martin, the founder and president, and I've been here ever since. Back then we didn't even have the term, I don't think, craft brewery. We called it microbrew, and there were a few of us. Star Hill was around, Richbrow was across the river, Old Dominion. There weren't a whole lot of us. There were probably a dozen in the state, so the scene was much different.
The scene was much different, and it stayed about the same until 2012, when Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell signed Senate Bill 604 into law.
Before that bill was signed, breweries that wanted to sell their beer retail on site had to produce food as well. So basically they had to be brew pubs or restaurants. And that bill allowed brewers to sell pints, growlers, samples, etc. on site. And that really led to the evolution of all these tap rooms where people can come and just have a good time at the tap room. There's really a minimal amount of food involved, and the emphasis is on tasting and sampling great beer.
Senate Bill 604 rocked Richmond's world, and the whole state's. The Virginia beer industry has seen a 468% growth in breweries since the bill was passed. The industry now contributes more than $9.34 billion annually to the state's economy and employs over 28,000 people in production, distribution, and retail. But nowhere in Virginia benefits from SB 604 quite like Richmond. The city is now a hub for beer lovers and brewers alike, with areas like Scott's Addition flourishing under the new regulations.
Scott's Addition is an example of where breweries have created a neighborhood feel, and people gravitate toward that.
The neighborhood has just really kind of come into its own. It's just an ever-growing influx of people, foot traffic, businesses, food, apartments. Every week it seems like there's something new opening up in Scott's Addition.
The craft brewers have really been a catalyst for economic development. Before that, it was almost a canyon of isolated vacant warehouses, a neighborhood that was down on its luck a little bit, but they have generated this economic development that has rejuvenated that part of the city.
And it's not only the locals who are catching on.
Tourism's big with breweries. Breweries that are fairly close together and easy to jump around from one to the next. So I think that's a big part of it.
So originally I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin, and moving over here, you see a lot of these little microbreweries kind of popping up, and it's basically just a very welcoming feel. So many different locations in such a close proximity. You have just a great amount of diversity in the community.
Yeah, looks fun and all, but we wanted to know about the drama. Too bad there wasn't any.
It's competitive in the sense that everyone wants to make the best product that they can, you know. So that's goal number one, is just making super quality beer, making the best beer of the style that you're trying to go for. But at the same time, there's a great sense of community across all of the breweries, cideries, meaderies, distilleries. Even in Scott's Addition, we've got our own kind of social club of sorts where we'll meet periodically and just, you know, see what everybody else is doing.
It's healthy, and it's I mean, we kind of all know each other here and there. We borrow stuff from each other. It's been that way ever since the early days, but yeah, to someone to say that we're all friendly and there's no competition, that's you know, obviously not the case. There's only so much shelf space in the retailer stores, in the restaurant, and warehouse room with the distributors. I think we all know that we're all squashing each other out just a little bit.
There's always going to be that competitive undertone of like, I want to make the best style of this beer, but overall, everyone's just, you know, super friendly and just trying to have fun with it.
In terms of brewers and brewery owners, they have to be smart about their identity.
Yeah, we're sticking to our roots, keeping our production up of our solid core brands, and as we go through that, we're also putting out one-off batches of Urban Legend series beers that are kind of playful. We're using some different ingredients and doing some variants and barrel aging, and keeping fun stuff out for us and for the consumer.
One of the most common questions we get here is, you know, besides growler fills, can I get beer to go here? And so hopefully that addresses that need, but we're really excited with the growler program. We think that our beers and just our whole kind of branding and mission lends itself to, you know, taking beers on the road, taking it out into the wild, into the parks, where it's legal, of course. So that's going to be really exciting for us.
If I were starting up a brewery, I'll put it that way.
Exactly.
I would start small and stay small.
Whatever you budget for, double that. However long you think it's going to take, double or triple that. Beyond that, it's just like really, you know, understand what your goal is, what your mission is, and try to learn as much as you can from people who have already walked down that road before. There is no shortage of brewers and brewery owners in Richmond that you can tap into for that kind of advice.
Focus on consistency and quality, and then keeping a wide portfolio of beverages that offer something for everybody.
As far as Richmond's beer scene goes, I think we're going to continue to see more and more interesting breweries of, you know, small or large, just trying new things. You know, I think the most successful breweries that open up here are going to be the ones that try to carve out a niche for themselves and do something that no one else has done before, or do it better than anybody else has done before.
Well, we may not have Sarah Jessica Parker, but Richmond definitely has suds in the city.
With apologies to Sarah Jessica Parker, we're here with the student producers of Suds in the City, Eleanor Fialk, Eli Lockaby, and Alex Granbach. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Eli, let me start with you since you're right next to me. What's the best part of the filming experience to you?
The best part, honestly, just working with these two. It was a lot of fun. We got to, I'm from Orlando, Florida, so the brewery scene is a lot different there. And coming here, knowing it came from one brewery to 30 in a decade, it was just unbelievable, and we got to experience that and go from various breweries, different tasting. It was awesome. It was just a lot of fun.
Okay, good. Eleanor, I know one of the things the students experience in this class is the tremendous difference between doing a story that's long form versus the shorter news stories that we're used to. What did you find?
Definitely. It was very different, but I would say the differences for me personally were positive, because with this doc, it was a lighthearted subject. So that was really great and fun, and obviously news isn't always dark, but you know, a lot of it is very serious. So we really got to kind of put our creativity and just like our kind of fun spin on it. So it was a really good time to produce, and just, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Now you guys managed to visit a lot of breweries in doing this. Alex, what was your favorite one?
Well, it was very hard for me because I had two favorites. First one was Vossen, and the second one was Isley. But I have to go with Isley because I saw on the menu they had Star Wars themed beers. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, so immediately drew my attention, and I was a huge fan of Isley.
Okay. Were there any funny stories or experiences that you came away with from doing this?
You got this one,
Alex? Well, we were interviewing one person. He was slightly intoxicated, and he forgot to spell his own name correctly. He did not know how to do it, and his mother was standing next to him, and she actually helped him out, spell his name for him, and yeah, that was pretty funny for us. Okay,
we won't go any further than that. Okay? What did you learn that specifically stood out to you? Anybody can answer that.
Yeah, honestly, I think just the economic impact it had on not only Richmond, but the state of Virginia. You know, over 28,000 people are now employed. It's got, you know, millions and millions of dollars in revenue, and it's just completely impacted the tourism industry as well. So just something lighthearted and fun like beer can turn into something very positive for the economy as well as the state.
It was pretty impressive that VinePair named us number one beer destination. You think it was justified?
For sure.
For sure. After going around, absolutely.
The growth was amazing, just how quickly.
All right, well, thanks again to the producers behind Suds in the City, Eleanor Fialk, Eli Lockaby, and Alex Granbeck. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks again, Dr. Oglesby, and all the documentary students. That does it for this edition of VCU In Depth. Thank you for joining us. I'm Africoma Darko.
And I'm Nyana Whitley. For all of us at VCU In Depth, good night.